Good evening. Are you ready? Welcome to the first meeting of the new year. This is the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Milford. And if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we start this evening's meeting with a roll call from my left?
Joe Castagnoli, present.
I'm Brian Collegian.
Nancy Austin.
Jim Quish.
John Mortimer.
Jim Cater.
Peggy Kearney.
Brett Broster.
Bob Sadie.
And I'm David Sulkus, City Planner, and for a brief moment in time, the acting chair before the election this evening. And to my left is our board secretary, Meg Green. Before we get to the election of the chair and vice chair, I'd like to ask the board to actually make a motion to add to the agenda a new item, which is a bond reduction. It's an administrative action of the board for Kohlberg Estates. So if I can get a motion to add that to the agenda, that would be appreciated.
I'll make a motion to add that to the agenda.
And a second?
I'll second.
And can I see a vote of hands, please? Okay, we have the 2/3 required to add that to the agenda. We can do two things now. We can either discuss that item now, or we can discuss it later in the agenda as a second item of new business. Does the board have a preference? Okay, we're going to wait. So the first order of business this evening is the election of a chair. After the chair is elected, there will then be an election with the new chair overseeing it for the vice chair. Do I have any nominations for chair? Nancy?
I nominate Jim Quish for chair.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations for chair? Seeing none, by unanimous acclamation, it appears we will have Jim Quish as chair. Congratulations.
Do I have a nomination for vice chair?
I nominate Bob Sadie.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, unanimous consent, Bob Sadie, vice chair. So our first order of business is 911 River Street, petition of Jessica Trujillo for an amendment to the existing site plan approval to remove the liquor sales prohibition condition of 9616 on map 54, block 397, parcel 8, of which Altama LLC is the owner.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton, and my office is located at 63 Cherry. I'd like at the outset to wish all of you a Happy New Year. Nice to see a few new members on the board, and I look forward working with all of you to ensure that proper development continues in Milford. The board is charged with very important work in this town, and I think you'll all find this to be a very intellectually stimulating experience. So welcome to the new board members. So the first application that I have to present to you tonight is an application that's been filed by the Trujillo family, who are seated right behind me. My clients are the owners of Los Cobos. It's a Mexican restaurant that's located at 911 River Street. They're doing very well with their business, and we're before you tonight with an amendment to the site plan approval, which they received in 2016. Those board members who were on the board at that time may recall that an application was presented by the Trujillos to start their restaurant at the premises located at 9 River Street. There is a restriction in the MCDD zone where the property is located that you cannot have a liquor permit location in that zone in premises which are less than 2,000 square feet. So when they started their business, they got their approval. They've now opened up, but they've been operating as a BYOB facility, and a lot of their customers would like to have a margarita or a Corona with their Mexican meal. So we've come before you with this application. They also did their due diligence prior to submitting this application. They requested from the town assessor, based on their floor plan, and this, I think all of you have received a copy of that floor plan. They requested the city assessor's office to establish, based on city standards, the exact square footage of the restaurant, and it was determined to be 2,066 square feet. So with the size of the restaurant being at that amount of square footage, it is eligible for this location to seek a liquor permit. However, when they came before you in 2016, it was a specific condition of the approval based upon the fact of the facts presented at that time that the location was not 2,000 square feet. It was a specific condition of the approval that liquor would not be served. So very simply, we were before you tonight with an amendment to that site plan approval. We've supplied you with a statement of use showing the hours of the operation. There's an additional item that was added. My clients would like to have acoustic music in a designated area of the floor plan on Friday and Saturday evenings for music during the weekend dinner hours. So that was added to the statement of use as well. So with that, I'd submit that this is a reasonable request. All the other restaurants downtown in that area in the MCDD zone do have liquor permits, and my clients would like to have the availability to move forward with an application to the Liquor Control Authority to get a liquor permit for these premises. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, or my clients would be available as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you, Chairman Cush. Through you to Attorney Lynch. Happy New Year also.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to understand how the size changed. Were there improvements made on the property from 2016 when it was approved? If you could just explain that, please.
Yeah, I think that they went in with a hand-drawn floor plan that wasn't professionally done, and then the city assessor went out after that. In fact, the assessor's reevaluation of the space was not done at the request of my clients. It was done as part of the building itself, having work being done on it. Other users in the building have done construction work. I know the owner of El Barrio is putting that large addition to his side of the building with the apartments. So, however it was accomplished, the city assessor did go out. We supplied, David, your file may have a copy of the assessor's card that was amended. So upon determination that the size of the space was in fact over 2,000 square feet, that precipitated this application.
A couple additional questions, specifically on the, I call it a map, but the description of the building. How much over 2,000 feet is this now?
66
square
square feet.
How much?
66 square feet.
Okay. And then the next two questions deal with the statement of use. You've indicated one was December 18th and the other was January 2nd.
That's correct.
Again, in looking at the one on January 2nd of this year, although it's dated 2019, I'm assuming it was this year. You're talking about live music, hours of entertainment and the like. Where is that allowed in the zoning regulations? Do we have to prove that, or is that in a subsequent zoning regulation that's already in effect?
Those forms of entertainment are not set forth in the zoning regulations, but the zoning office requires when there's a site plan application due to a change of use, which this precipitated the original application in 2016, the regulations do call for a statement of use, and I believe the statement of use that was submitted in 2016 did not include any statement of fact relative to music being on the premises. So there's no zoning regulation that dictates whether it's Stonebridge or Eli's or any of the other places that have music at night. There's no zoning regulation that dictates that.
And just following up on that, so if this came in as a site plan initially before us and they wanted live music, we would have to approve that as part of the process, is that correct?
Correct.
And I'm a little bit concerned about the most recent January 2nd, 2020, the term musical entertainment on the weekends is rather ambiguous, and also as to where it's located, and is it going to be inside the building, outside of the building? If you could explain that a little bit more, please.
Yeah, and I believe that today there was, I don't know if it was passed to the board members, per David's request, there was in fact a notation on the floor plan that Jessica had laid out an area where there would be the music, and it will only be acoustic music, Bob, and it would not be outside. They don't have an outdoor patio. They don't have any area in the front of the restaurant that would be utilized whatsoever for music.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Lynch, because this was dropped off at our office so late today, the acoustic is not, that comment about acoustic isn't quite accurate. They're now saying they want to have acoustic artists, mariachi, and DJs. DJs are not acoustic.
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So that, just to let you know, they're asking for that as well.
All right, well, I think the request before you is for acoustic music, and I believe that mariachi falls under that as long as it's not amplified. And again, DJ, I leave it to the board. That wasn't part of the original discussion.
And also, Mr. Chair, just to let the board know, I did meet with the assessor to get an understanding of the assessment that was made on the property, and it is, in fact, the 2,066 square feet that's been presented.
Mr. Lynch, thank you. Just one other question. In reference to the issue, and we did see this last piece of paper, the original one we had did not have the notification of where the entertainment would be. Mm-hmm. Does require a response by the Department of Health and the Fire Department to get any approvals for us to make a decision today?
They are inspected by the Department of Health on a yearly basis, and I believe the plans were approved by the Fire Department.
Thank you. I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
And one final note, the liquor application has to be signed by the zoning enforcement officer, and it also has to be signed off by the fire marshal, so there's another level of review at that point.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Castagnoli?
Is that a full liquor permit, not limited to just beer and wine?
No,
full?
it would be a restaurant liquor permit. Okay. And if you look at the floor plans, they're not going to have a bar, Joe. They're just going to have like a service area where if somebody wants to have a drink, somebody will make the drink and deliver it, but there's not going to be a bar inside the restaurant. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
As it relates to the addition of the DJ, can you explain a little bit more of how you envision that? It sounds like mariachi band falls under the acoustic piece of that, but
Correct.
The DJ, can you talk a little bit more about
If
that?
I can have just a moment to speak to my client. Let's stipulate that the DJ portion of the statement of use can be removed it can be a condition of the approval that there would be no DJ. Okay?
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? David, would you like to add anything?
When it comes time to have a motion, I would just add to the motion that language that the approval would include acoustic music only, no amplified music, or no DJ, however you want to word it.
Okay, I'd hear a motion. Mr. Sadi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve with the following conditions: the petition of Jessica Trujillo for an amendment to the existing site plan approval to remove the prohibition on alcoholic drink sales imposed by the Planning and Zoning Site Plan Approval condition of September 6, 2016, on map 54, block 397, parcel 8, of which Altama LLC is the owner, allow for the purpose of an application of a liquor permit, and allow for musical entertainment described as acoustical musical entertainment.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next order of business is a public hearing closed by February 11th, vote by April 16th, 2020. 3335 Laurel Avenue, Zone R5, petition of Thomas Lynch, Esquire, for proposed zone change on map 16, block 147, parcel 23, of which Titanium Properties is the owner. We also have a proposed re-subdivision on the same map and block and same address. So I guess we can, are you comfortable doing both at the same time? Okay.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Thomas Lynch representing Titanium Properties. My client is the owner of the property located at 3335 Laurel Avenue. We have an application for a zone change from the the R5 zone classification to CDD2. That's the first application, and then in conjunction with that is an application for a subdivision of the property to allow for 2 building lots for single-family homes, and also coastal area management approval. So just by way of background, and I've submitted the plans to you. Sheet 1 shows the existing conditions with the 2-family non-conforming house that's located on the property. It's a structure consisting of some 1,670 square feet. I've also given you photos showing the structure. So the request is to change the zone from R5 to CDD2. The property borders on the CDD2 zone at the intersection of Laurel Avenue and Broadway. So this is basically a request. And if you go to the third sheet in your plans, it shows the zone change summary. And also, that sheet shows very well the location of the other properties in close proximity. All of these lots are non-conforming lots on Laurel Avenue. They were off of a 1907 map of property of William K. And the property at 3335 was improved by a 2-family non-conforming house that was constructed in 1915. My client has owned the property since 2006. It's now not occupied. And the request is to move the zone line back one parcel to include this property in the CDD2 zone. The reason for that is the property consists of 2 lots on that 1907 subdivision map, and when the house and the shed and the garage were constructed, in essence, it merged the 2 lots. The property is some 7,200 square feet in size. The 2 lots are each 3,600 square feet in square footage. So the construction of the house and the shed and the garage on the property, in essence, merged the properties. There's a procedure under Section 642 of our zoning regulations in areas of non-conforming lots where you can divide properties such as this and build on a non-conforming lot as long as no improvements have been made on the other lot. In other words, you're familiar with many instances where a house is built on a lot and then there's a vacant lot next door that has no garage on it, no shed, and under those conditions you can seek a division of that lot and build a house on it under the Regulation 642. This cannot be accomplished on this property because back in 1915, the house was built combining the lots. So the house that's on there now is in a completely dilapidated state and it is non-conforming. It's a 2-family house in a single-family zone. And the goal of this application is to move the zone line up one parcel. In that event, then, the CDD2 zone allows for building lots consisting of 2,000 square feet. So a single-family house could be built on each of the 2 lots. The second page of our survey package that we gave to you shows the layout of the 2 houses. And the second picture that I handed out to you just now is the proposed house that would be built on each of those 2 lots. So in other words, again, the goal is to take down a non-conforming, dilapidated structure and build 2 very aesthetically pleasing houses that are in conformity with the other developments that have been done on the other side of Laurel Avenue and along the beach areas in Walnut Beach. And we feel that this would be a big improvement to the neighborhood. You're going to hear from neighbors. I believe there's a number of the neighbors across the street or on Laurel Avenue who are here tonight with a petition in favor of this application. But I think the goal that we want to do here is to be in conformity with the plan of conservation and development on any zone change. And I think that that is accomplished here because clearly what we're doing is seeking to build 2 single-family residences which are permitted uses in the CDD2 zone as well as the existing R5 zone. The other thing that I wanted to stress, and I was made aware of some comments that were made on the Walnut Beach Association Facebook page. There may be very well neighbors here from Walnut Beach that are concerned about this, and we anticipated that because of the fact that moving the zone line up doesn't guarantee necessarily that a house could be built on the structure. Someone could take the attitude that this is some sort of a smokescreen, and once the zone is changed to CDD2, then my client would build a storefront or a multifamily dwelling or some other use, commercial or residential, that is permitted in the CDD2 zone. I made it very clear to David when we met many months ago when we started this application, and I'm making the representation to the board that we are willing to deed restrict the property so that it can only be used for single-family residential use now and in the future. That's a very simple procedure to do that. There can be a restrictive covenant that can be placed in the deed, either going to the prospective home buyer when the house is built, or it can be accomplished through a restrictive covenant drafted by me and reviewed by the city attorney and recorded on the land records, and it binds the property, again, only to be used for single-family use now and in the future. And clearly, we represent to you that that can be made a condition of your approval if you see fit to approve the application. So that's the sum and substance of what we've presented to you. There's, again, zone change, 2-lot subdivision. David also made us aware that because of the fact that this is within 1,500 feet of Long Island Sound, a CAM report was necessary. We were going to appear before you at last month's meeting, but we put it off to tonight for Codespody and Associates to do a CAM report. That's been submitted to you. It was reviewed by Greg Podleski, and there were a couple of technical comments that he had in his memo. I think you have it. And again, any of those comments would be addressed with some minor revision to the plans and could be made a condition of any approval. I also will state, and your file should indicate, that the plans were reviewed by all city departments. Fire department reviewed the plans and issued a memo of approval. It was submitted to the police commission. There's a memo from the police commission approving the request. We've already received approval for the 2 homes to be connected to the city wastewater system, so the sewer commission has approved that. And as I mentioned, the city engineer has reviewed the plans as well, and any comments and recommendations that he has, I think he summarized it at the end of his report as being technical in nature, they would be addressed prior to the issuance of any building permit. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board before we open up the public hearing? Mr. Cater.
Dave, can I ask you a question? Is there any kind of implications you can foresee with this zone change? I like what he's saying. I get a little nervous if you change the zoning and then somehow the building plans don't go through or something, but now the zone's been changed, it opens it up.
Yeah.
Are they tied together?
Well, let David answer that. You directed that to him, so.
You can tie it together. You can make the zone change also conditional on them actually building the houses. So there's sort of 2 safeguards. One is they wouldn't be able to file the re-subdivision map unless the deed restriction has been put in place. But having said that, you bring up a good point. At that point, they may decide, oh, gee, we don't, yeah, well, we'll subdivide it, but maybe we don't want to have the houses. So you can make a condition of approval that they go through with pulling their permits and, build the single-family homes before the zone change takes effect. So they would have to pull those, they would have to come in at least applying for the permits. That's the closest thing we could do. And that way we'll know that those buildings are going in.
Can I also comment on that? It's somewhat similar to an 830G application that gets approved by this board. David requires, prior to the building permit even being issued, the deed restriction placed on the land records that restricts the property for 40 years, that X number of units have to be rented to people at 60% of the state income and the others rented at 80%. So I would even throw out that prior to even pulling building permits, that the property be restricted so it can never be used for anything other than a single-family residence.
Mr. Sadi. Go ahead, Jim. Finish.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. I wonder if you could address 2 issues. Going from the CDD, or going to the CDD, how much of the actual property is going to increase? Is it 20 feet, 100 feet? If you can answer that.
You mean how far is the zone line going to extend?
Yes.
The frontage of each of these lots is 40 feet, so the answer to your question would be 80 feet.
Okay. And the next question that I have for you is, so you gave us some pictures for the record. One appears to be the existing building.
Correct.
There appears to be a second picture, and for the record, that is something apparently that's going to be similar in look.
Correct.
And the last question I have about this is that in reference to the deed restriction, it's your position that if the zoning change is approved with conditions and then the re-subdivision is allowed, that would be binding on whoever was the owner of 2 properties or 1 property?
Both properties.
Both properties. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, because just as a follow-up, the application is for a subdivision into 2 lots. Right now, for city purposes, even though it has an address of 3335 Laurel Avenue, that's because of the fact it's being used as a 2-family house, but there are 2 lots on a 1907 subdivision map that then would be created as conforming lots, as David said in his staff memo. The lots would then be conforming if the zone change goes through, and then you'd have 2 lots. Both of those lots would be restricted per the comments that I've made to you.
Any other questions or comments before we open up the public hearing? Okay, at that point, I would open a public hearing. Anyone who would like to speak on the matter, please come to the podium, state your name for the record. Try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Just from a procedural point of view, do you want people to speak in favor first and then people
That's what I'm
against?
going to do, yep.
I don't think you said that, so that's...
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone that's... What's that? I can't hear you. Yeah. Yeah, so please do state your name and address for the record, and address your comments to the commission, the board, and so anyone in favor, please come to the podium. Seeing none, anybody that's opposed, please come to the podium.
My name is Dana Marcus. I live at 40 Park Ave. We have a community here of all 40 Park Ave. This is all of Park Ave, and I'm sure some others. Sorry, I might get a little emotional and excited about this, but these properties, they keep getting built bigger and bigger. We live in a beach house community. We have a local church. We're losing all our parking spots.
Yeah, I think you can lift that microphone up closer to your mouth. Thank you.
We're losing parking to these large homes. They have family, they have friends come over. There's no place to park. And what we've seen in the past is these beach house communities, they start building all these tall buildings. When we have a fire, we're losing multiple homes. The property adjacent from this, we already know on Laurel Ave, they had a huge fire, they lost 4 homes. And now you see all these tall buildings. I can speak for a lot of people on Park Ave. I'm sure they all want to come up themselves. We are losing our parking like it's going out of style with all these homes going up. If we turn this into 2 more homes, we're going to lose more parking. In front of this home right now, there is a garage, but there's 4 parking spots available with their driveway. If you build 2 homes, you've taken away all the parking in front of these homes for other residents that live in the neighborhood. There's more and more I can go on. I'm going to let somebody else come up next. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Laura Marcus, 40 Park Avenue. No parking, again, is my concern. The fire hazard is my concern. If I'm not home and a fire jumps to my house and I lose everything that I care about, that is a strong feeling. On Laurel Avenue, there's no sidewalk. There's no maintenance. You're losing parking. We have high crime. There should be a traffic light at the end, and there's not. So you're just adding to the burden of a community that can't handle it. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm in favor. My name is Connie Henshaw.
And if you would just speak right into the microphone.
Sorry.
Thanks.
My name is Connie Henshaw. I live on 41 Broadway, which is on the corner of Laurel and Broadway, and my property is adjacent to this property. So I do have a sincere interest in having it redone. I'm totally interested in single-family homes. I think people take care of their own homes. And I bring with me a petition from some of the neighbors to share with you. Do I give it to you?
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
I'm Chris Boxall, 42 Laurel Avenue. I'm sort of in between on this, meaning I'm for the development of the two-family. I'm just against the zone change. And I wish that the board had a way to do a special exception or something, but to keep it within the zoning of the R5. That's my take on it.
Thank you.
I'm Chad Twombly, 38 Laurel Avenue. The property directly across from the property that we're discussing tonight. I just want to say briefly, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, in terms of parking, we do have garages, so I guess we could park in our garage. But in terms of bettering the community, I mean, a shed full of raccoons and a house that's falling apart, to make that gone and to build 2 brand new houses for what's going on down there just makes sense. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Paulson from 53 Park Avenue. I happen to be in the neighborhood new when the 38 Laurel Avenue fire took place and took out 2 homes. I'm sorry, 2-family home itself and an apartment building. It also damaged houses, I believe 3 to 4 behind it on Stowe Avenue. While I agree the buildings that are there need to be changed, I am 100% against the, I forget what it is, sorry, the CDD2, I think it's called. But also there is parking issues, there's crime issues in our area. I've been there for 10 years. I lived in Bridgeport and Stratford, and I have seen more police activity on my street alone than in Bridgeport and Stratford combined. While I'm not moving, because I love my neighborhood, we need less housing. I think it should be fixed. Definitely, if you want to put 2, go put 2. Single family. No CDD2, absolutely not. We have businesses now that are empty along Broadway and Naugatuck. Naugatuck has just added more condos. In addition to those condos, underneath is in excess of 2,400 square feet of commercial space. We have no parking. Part of Naugatuck, on one side is only 15-minute parking. On the other side, 3/4 of the way up is 2-hour parking. There is no parking. People who live in the apartments on Naugatuck Avenue park on our street. There is no room. Please, don't do it. Thank you.
Good evening, planning and zoning members. My name is Michael Caro. Live at 74 Stowe Avenue. For 30 years before that, I lived at 48 Laurel Avenue. And when I moved in, it was pretty nasty, pretty slummy area of the city, as you might know. Then we started the Devon and Walnut Beach revitalization, along with the growth of the Walnut Beach Association, for which I was a founding member and vice president at the time, and was vice president for several years. Mr. Sulkus and other city officials frequented the Walnut Beach meetings to discuss the city's revitalization plan and the change of the zoning from the Devon through the Naugatuck Avenue corridor, we called it at the time. The result was a CDD2 for the for the Naugatuck Avenue corridor, and an R5 zoning, single-family zone for Laurel Avenue, with a lot of input from city residents. Around the same time, I believe, it was Attorney Lynch who represented 33 to 35 Laurel Avenue with a request to unmerge 2 previously merged properties. They were probably merged, as he said, when the house and the garage were built about 100 years ago. And his client would tear down the eyesores, which still exist today, and build 2 new houses, which still don't exist today. And as a person in the audience and vice president of the Walnut Beach Association, he had my vote. I said, great, why don't you tear that stuff down and build 2 beautiful new houses, and here we are 35 years later, not done. So, why not? The Milford city attorney got involved. They brought together the lawyers and the city officials to state clearly that there are no provisions in the planning and zoning regulations to unmerge 2 merged properties. Thank you very much. Meeting is over. Boom, everybody go home. Today, the same 2-family house, 33 and 35 Laurel, and a blighted garage, which is on the lot, which I believe is the merged lot, still exist. Now, Attorney Lynch and Titanium Properties would like the zoning change and a re-subdivision. I know I don't want a zoning change. I worked for 15 years to get a single-family zoning change in this particular area, and I do not want to see that changed. I don't believe that if the zoning is changed to a CDD2 and whoever the Titanium property owners are, they could just sell that piece of property to a builder, and he has to, in my mind, be only regulated to the CDD2 zoning change. Now, Titanium Properties could build a beautiful single-family home. They could start tomorrow, produce the paperwork, bring it to the city builders, bring it to planning and zoning. No problem. They could build a single-family house on that lot. And that's what we have, single-family zoning. We want to leave it that way. I don't believe these kinds of machinations. You want to build a single-family house, go right ahead. You have the property to do that. You have the zoning to do that. We worked for 20 years to create that kind of zoning, and we do not want to lose it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Paula Andrade from 43 Park Avenue. I'll be honest with you, I don't really understand what the zoning means. CD2 was explained to me as a resident of the neighborhood. I also didn't see the project. I'm not sure if we are here why we can't see the project for 2 houses. If you want to tear down an old house, if you want to build 2 single-family beautiful homes, fine. But how can you guarantee that nothing else will be built in the future? So my question is, why do we have to change the zone to build 2-family homes if you're already adequate for single-family home? If that can be answered, so that is something more that in the future we regret the fact that we approved something to be done today. I'm not against the housing, building, single-family home, but I'm against the zoning changing. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, the applicant will have an opportunity to address the concerns of the public.
Thank you. So it seems as though the folks that live on Park Avenue are upset because of the loss of off-street parking that would result from this development. And I find that a little strange, because why should the property owners on Laurel Avenue be providing off-street parking for the folks on Park Avenue? We're before you with an application to develop this property. This property does have sidewalks. It has a 2-family garage on each of the houses, which would then take, I would assume, houses off of Laurel Avenue, and then the driveways as well. Each house could, in theory, have 4 cars taken off of the street. And when I say the street, I mean Laurel Avenue. So, you know, I understand Park is a narrow street. A lot of the streets, whether they're in Wildermere or they're in the other beach areas, very, very narrow, and off-street parking is a concern. But most of the time, that's because of the fact that those properties don't have off-street parking. And what we're providing here is 2 houses with 2 garages and 2 additional cars that would be able to park in the driveway. So any problem that exists on Laurel Avenue with off-street parking would be, in fact, alleviated with this application. One of the speakers spoke about concerns over sidewalks. The plans that we've submitted to you do provide sidewalks. So I, again, direct your attention to that. And then the gentleman that spoke about his years on the Walnut Beach Association and being an advocate for revitalization in this area, I think a picture speaks 1,000 words. The pictures that I handed to you show a dumpy, dilapidated, 2-family, non-conforming house that we propose to tear down and build 2 beautiful houses that will be an enhancement to the neighborhood. And I'd ask you to focus your attention on the speakers who came up to the microphone from Laurel Avenue and the petition that was submitted to you from the other folks on Laurel Avenue. They're the ones that are looking at this eyesore right now that's going to be eliminated with 2 beautiful homes built on it. And again, I close my comments with just reiterating the fact that the purpose of changing the zone and moving the zone line up is to enable that this property then be subdivided into 2 lots that are in conformity with the other lots in the area. You saw the zone change map. All of the other houses on Laurel Avenue are on similar sized lots. That 1907 map subdivided property down in that area into 40 by 90-foot lots. So these 2 lots are totally in conformity with the other lots on Laurel Avenue. And I submit to you that, again, we've ensured through our presentation to you and the comments that David made to you, I reiterate to the neighbors that this is not a smokescreen. Nothing can happen from this point forward if the board approves these applications to have anything built on these properties other than a single-family house, and we'll ensure that. Thank you.
Thank you. The public is now invited again. If you've spoken and you want to make another point, you're welcome to come back to the podium. Please do state your name and address again. Thanks.
Thank you. Laura Marcus, 40 Park Avenue. Forgive my ignorance. We were told by a man that claimed to be the purchaser and developer that they wanted to put 2 homes that are identical to what they built on Laurel Avenue, which are 4-story and maybe even 5-story homes. So even though they're single family, who's going to be living there? Who's going to be paying that amount of rent in a neighborhood that has crime and no parking and vagrants and motel hell a block away with junkies? I'm sorry to say it. That's what we deal with. There is no maintenance on that street. And again, the fire. I really get concerned that my tiny little beach house with my tiny little privacy fence, and I'm going to have a huge monstrosity, 2, peering over at me, and if they catch fire, it's gonna pass to me very quickly. What's gonna happen to keep me safe? It's very concerning. And I do believe that Laurel Avenue was here in opposition. Am I right or wrong?
Please just...
I'm wrong? Okay, forgive me.
Yeah, please make your comments to the board.
Okay.
You can't really have
Well,
interaction.
I heard him say that Laurel Avenue was here, and I heard him say Laurel Avenue was here for the motion, but I thought you said people for the motion would speak first, and they spoke after us. So
we mixed up the order a little bit.
Okay, so those are my concerns. They're big concerns. I would hope that you would take them into major consideration, even if you don't live in my neighborhood. We are a small beach community. We have these huge houses with multi-families, and I'm sorry if a 4- and 5-story building goes up, you're not getting a family with a husband and wife and 2 kids. Every rental house on our street has 8 cars. 8. It's a problem. Thank you.
Chris Boxtall, 42 Laurel. Again, I think the main concern that a bunch of us have is not that there's not the ability to build two-family single homes, is that once you go with the CDD2 zoning change, at that point, is the house or the houses that they're going to build, is that under the zoning so that they can build taller houses there? And whereas the regulation should be matched to the R5 zone, in our opinion. And that's why I think the desire to do something such as a special exception to the R5 zone or something in that realm versus changing the zoning would be the more appropriate solution to achieve the goal that the developer or the owner would like to do.
Kathy Paulson, 53 Park Avenue. First, I want to ask a question, if it's okay. That lot, can it not be split into R5, two R5 properties? Do we know the answer to that question?
Will you repeat the question?
So that particular lot has been merged, as I understand it. So it was two lots, now it's one lot. They want to split it and change it to CDD2. Can they not split it into two R5? I think it's R5 we are?
No.
Okay.
That wouldn't work.
I wasn't sure, that's why I was asking the question.
That's a good question.
So definitely, I'm still against it. I think if there are, I believe we were told, non-conforming properties in the area, including myself, I would say go forward, change the zoning so that you cannot any longer have multifamily. There is no room. There's too much crime. There is no parking. And the parking that will affect us, I understand, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Our parking is our parking, their parking is their parking, except that Naugatuck Avenue rolls over into our street rolls over into their street. And Broadway is just a mess. There's businesses there in the summertime, on a Sunday with church and the creamery, which we love, the church and the creamery, you cannot turn right onto Broadway or left off of Park or Laurel. You cannot do it. There's no way. There's children everywhere. There's cars on both sides of the street. The cars actually park up half onto the sidewalk on the opposite side of us, closer to the beach. There is no room. There is absolutely no room. Thank you.
Hello. Michael Caro again. I do believe these two lots, not with the two-family house, but the two-family house and the garage next door, we have to clarify that. 33 and 35 are not two lots. That's a two-family house. Historically, two-family houses were allowed in the area. The zoning was changed. There was an attempt to unmerge the merged lots about 25 years ago. The city attorney put the bonk on that, and she was correct to do so. These people, Titanium LLC, as I said earlier, can come back tomorrow, start filing their paperwork, and build a beautiful single-family house on that property. That's what it's zoned for. Personally, I don't want a zoning change because of all the repercussions that could happen, even if they only have a commitment to build two houses on that particular lot. If you change the zoning to a CDD2, there are 3 houses that I look at across the street from me that are in foreclosure. If I bought all 3 of those lots and sold them to builders, do you think they would go for the CDD2 zoning, wouldn't they? Of course they would. There's 3 of them right across the street from me. Thank you.
Chad Twombly, 38 Laurel Avenue. I think just in summation here of everything that we discussed tonight, I mean, I think the overall premise is that everybody just wants to see the neighborhood move in a positive direction forward. You know, I think 2 single-family homes, everybody on Laurel Avenue is pretty game for that. So, you know, if doing the new zoning with deed restrictions and making sure I'm not very up on the whole procedure here, but if there are real restrictions to make them just do two-family homes, or two single-family homes, I mean, I just think that's the right thing. You know, I go out my front door and stare at it every day, so that's what I see, just moving forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maricela Ramos, 42 Laurel also. I hear everybody's concerns. We live right across from this property, and we agree that something needs to be done, you know, for the betterment of the community, and that's not the issue here. I think for us is the zoning change. You know, once this CDD2 change sets a precedent that is non-conformant, is not in conformance with the overall scheme of that corridor. You're biting inside of the street of the neighborhood where it's an R5 zone. That's a concern. You know, it like I forgot your last name, Mr. Mike said, you know, you set a precedent for other locations to do the same thing. You know, that's not part of the comprehensive plan. This type of CD2 zones is for the corridors. I would ask the commission to reconsider, maybe to do a change or a modification, some type of special exception under the R5 to achieve this, and not under changing a zone just for that particular use. That's all. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, the applicant has a chance to finish.
I have nothing further to add. I think we covered all the issues, and I'd ask that you grant these applications. I think it's something that will be an enhancement to the neighborhood, and again, through the mechanism that we've put forth here, there was a lot of thought that was put into it, meetings with David, and I think that the zone change merely accomplishes the fact of then having two lots to conform to zoning regulations, and I submit to you that that's the proper way of doing this. So I'd ask that you grant the applications, and thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Does anyone have a reason why we should not close the public hearing? You can if you want to do it before the public.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's to David or not, but if the R5 can't be, zoning can't be subdivided, I mean, is it possible to change the zone, subdivide it, and then change it back? I mean...
No. And the simple reason is when you create a new lot under your subdivision regulations, it has to be compliant with your zoning. So that whole neighborhood is pre-existing non-conforming. They're less than 5,000 square foot lots. So in this particular case, what they're asking to do is subdivide the lot and change the zone because they don't have 5,000 square feet. Under the CDD2 zone, you're required to have just 2,000 square foot lots for a single family home. In this particular case, they're proposing to create these two new lots that won't be that minimum 2,000. They're going to be the 3,600 each lot that's going to match the rest of the neighborhood, which conforms with the residential requirements of the CDD2. Keep in mind, the CDD2 allows for residential. Of course, it also, as you heard tonight, through the concerns of people, also allows commercial. The only way the applicant can subdivide this lot is if the zone is changed to CDD2. There's no special exception. There's nothing you can do with an R5 zone because there's not enough land to do what the applicant wants to do to create the two lots.
Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd ask that we not close the public hearing because I need to address two of the articles of the Planning and Zoning Regulations. 10.1.2 requires a petition for change of zone, which this is, shall be accompanied by a concurrent petition for special permit or application or a site plan, and I don't see any of those attached to that, so could the city planner explain how we even accepted this application without following our regulations 10.1.2?
The site plan is part of the subdivision application. They are proposing two things. There's actually three things going on here. One, they're asking the board to change the zone. The reason for the zone change is because they want to do a subdivision. They've included in the packet submitted to the board the proposed subdivision that shows the two lots with two proposed footprints of houses on them.
Secondly, as part of that, it says, again, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Sulkus, the petition for a change of zone shall include a fiscal impact study, including the impact of school children to be generated. I suggest that was not provided to the board either. These are both mandatory requirements. If you could explain that, please.
What I can tell you is that it has been the procedure of the board in the past where when zone changes of this magnitude are asked for, we don't collect that kind of data. And in this particular case, because you're not actually changing the number of dwelling units. You're going from 2 dwelling units that are currently there to 2 dwelling units that are being proposed. So the net change under a fiscal analysis and impact would be 0. But be that as it may, if the applicant was coming to us with 100 unit or 100 property subdivision, say like Lexington Green, something like that, then by all means we would be looking for an impact statement, because clearly if you have no residential units and you're adding an extra 100, that will have an impact on the city. But going from 2 units to 2 units has 0 impact, so that was not asked for.
Mr. Quish, again, through you to Mr. Sulkus, that same subsection 10.1.2, it provides that if this is granted by the board, the building has to be done within 2 years, and would you agree that the remaining portion of it is, if it's not done, then it reverts back to the original R5 and the CDD2?
Absolutely.
And lastly, if we could comment on 10.5, which indicates that there's a protest filed at this public hearing, which it appears there is, that the vote has to be 2/3 of the entire membership of the board. Is that accurate?
That's not how it works. The protest, and I'd have to open up the book, is based on a specific number of property owners within a certain distance from the property. So we would have to see and it has to be done on paper, and we would have to confirm who those people are and see whether or not they qualify within the distance around the property. This came up, as you may recall, when there was a proposed change on 990 Naugatuck Avenue. That protest, that number was met by the adjacent neighbors who had the amount of property that would qualify under that provision.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sulkus.
Any other questions or comments from the board? From what I'm hearing, we do have 6 names on this petition in favor. Just for the board's edification, there was not 600, there were 6, but they were the neighbors in the area. I'm sort of hearing that people like the look of the house. They really don't seem to have too much of a problem with the 2 houses if it was a simpler mechanism to allow the developer. I mean, it's pretty nice. It'd be probably, $400,000 or $500,000 each to build. So it's nice to have somebody spending a lot of money in your neighborhood. It's good. There are 8 off-street parking, 2 under the house in the garage, and it looks like at least 2 in the driveway. So I see the parking as probably not adding much to the neighborhood. That's my neighborhood. I live down there, and I know what the parking's like, and I know what Sunday mornings are like, so, but that's part of the charm, I guess, of being in this beach community. I do feel that it's good to promote economic development, and a rising tide does float all boats. So I see it as a benefit to the community, but I'm concerned that the neighbors have concerns, and I don't think that these new houses will be any more of a fire hazard than the old house. Probably actually less of a fire hazard. The fire department has okayed the plan, as the police commission has. So I don't really see it as an egregious act here, in a sense. I see it as 3,500 square foot lots. If we start measuring all the lots on the street, I would say that some of them are less, some of them are more, but kind of consistent, But so those are my thoughts. I will take direction from the board if anyone wants to. If Mr. Sad, if you want to keep the...
Mr. Chairman, just to, sorry to interrupt, have we in fact closed the public hearing? Have we in fact closed the public hearing? Okay, thank you.
Couldn't I hear what you said? Could you say that again?
Well, I'm thinking that there's so many different opinions here, then this doesn't close for until February. If we just keep the public hearing open for one more meeting to see if anybody else, and maybe study it a little bit better.
Any thoughts on that from other members of the board? Keeping it open?
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, I'm opposed to keeping it open. These folks had noticed, they came out, they made an effort, which I appreciate. I don't need to have a new group come next week. We've heard what we need to hear.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry. You're not, ma'am, you're not allowed to speak anymore. Mr. Sadi, did I understand you correctly in that you prefer that we do not close the public hearing?
I had a general preference. I think that many things, I can go either way. It doesn't matter to me. Okay. It's not that I'm adamant one way or the other. The people have come out. They've been heard. More people want to speak. That's up to them. But I think that I have no problem if you close it.
And Peg, do you feel strongly about that? About keeping it open? I mean, I don't want to...
No, I don't. I just feel like we need to study this zone thing, the zone change thing a little bit. It's bothering me a little bit, so I would like to keep it open.
Well, yep, good.
I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but some people sound like they haven't seen the plans. You think it would be beneficial? They saw the picture, because the picture looks really like a nice little house. I mean, I don't know, maybe if you saw that and saw it wasn't 4 stories, which I think some of you were concerned with, is that appropriate? I'm not sure.
I really don't mind if someone wants to come and pass this picture around.
I'm not sure if it's the exact house, but it's similar to what you're proposing.
Wait. Sir.
Yeah, no, I got that.
Sir, you need to...
I'm sorry, sir. We really can't do it that way. Sure.
I know we all keep speaking about the parking. There's plenty of parking. There's...
Excuse me, folks, if I could just interrupt. We need this for a public record. When you speak, just have a microphone, please.
My name is Dana Marcus. I'm at 40 Park Ave. Everyone keeps speaking about the parking. Have any of you ever spent any time at that church on a Sunday? You're going to lose 3 spots in front. 3 spots don't sound like a lot right now, but 3 spots is a lot when you live in that community. Granted, they're gonna open up 6, 7 spots for themselves underneath their big homes. It's a lot. It's a lot on us as a community. We have the creamery, we have the church. Who knows what's gonna happen to the restaurant that just closed? This was more about zoning today is what I was understanding. If you change the zone, it can become a commercial property. I thought this was more about zoning. If we end the zoning, they can't zone, they can't build 2 homes. None of us have a problem with 1 home. It's the 2 homes is what we're worried about. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Laura Marcus, 40 Park Avenue. The picture, I'm not an architect, I'm not a blueprint analyzer. That picture means nothing to me. I was given a headache by building certain things. I don't know where that house is gonna be in proximity to the fence. I don't know how close it's gonna be to the house next to it that goes up in 8 years. I don't know anything. All I know is that you're going to change the zoning, which is of concern. So please just take a moment and really, really think about it. It may be kind of your neighborhood or maybe your neighborhood, but you're not the one passing sugar between the windows. Thank you.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
Yes, David.
I can answer some of those questions based on the plan they submitted for the house, both houses. They're going to comply with the R5 standard of zoning, and they're going to be 10.5 feet off of one property line, 5.5 feet off the other property line, and that's on each of the properties. So the 2 new houses, you're each going to have a side yard of 10 feet and a side yard of 5.5 feet. And actually, that complies with the CDD2 zone that it's in. So, for instance, 41 Laurel Avenue is built approximately, I don't have my scale here, I'm going to guess it has a variance, and it's about 2 feet off the property line. And the new house will be 10 feet off of that property line, which is a much better situation than what's currently existing there. The backyards of these houses are, in fact, backyards, so the yards are 30 feet deep to the property line of 38 Park Avenue and 40 Park Avenue. So again, they'll be 30 feet away from those property lines. I don't know if that helps the audience or not.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I think I agree with Brian. I think we've heard a good mix of people and understand their opinions. I would close the public hearing, and does anybody see a reason why we can't take a motion?
Mr. Chair, if you're going to vote on this, you have to break up the motions. First you have to vote on the change in zone, and if that passes, you can then vote on the re-subdivision and coastal area site plan review.
The zone change will take 6 votes.
The zone change takes at least 6 votes in favor, yes.
And the subdivision after that would just be a majority?
Correct.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve as presented the petition of Thomas Lynch for a zone change from R5 to CDD2 for the property located at 33-35 Laurel Avenue, map 16, block 147, parcel 23, of which Titanium Properties LLC is the owner, with an effective date of January 31st, 2020.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. David, what language do we put the restrictive covenant in? The zone change itself should reflect.
You could, there's, under the second motion, if this were to be approved, there's language in there that says both properties shall be deed restricted to allow only one family dwelling on each newly created parcel as its principal use. No other principal use of the parcel shall be allowed. You can add or take that and maybe tweak it to put it under this with a condition that this zone change remains in effect only if the condition of one family dwellings are constructed on this site per a deed restriction, something along those lines.
Would it be appropriate to have that language in with the zone change?
Can I paraphrase and see if I got that right?
Yeah.
So the condition would be zone change remains in effect only if both properties shall be deed restricted to allow only one family dwelling on each newly created parcel as its principal use. No other principal use of the parcels shall be allowed.
That takes,
That
mirrors the language of the second motion, yeah.
Right, but with that first clause?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that okay with you, Brian, to put that in your motion?
Yeah, I'll amend the motion that I made to include that language.
And would your seconding be okay with that as well? All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the community, for coming out. The concerns that you have about parking, unfortunately, cannot be protected at all times. It's a very difficult area to put many houses in a small area that's a wonderful, vibrant community. I share your same concerns about that. I also am concerned about the fact that there are deed restrictions now. Had there been no deed restrictions, I think that it would be a no-brainer for the board. I'm still not convinced this is an appropriate way to go, but I think that it's a great idea to have everybody come up and speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Roll call from the left.
I'm with the motion.
With the motion.
In favor? In favor.
Against the motion?
Against the motion?
Against the motion.
And I'm with the motion.
So the motion failed. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the motion and 4 against the motion. You needed 6 to pass it.
Okay, motion fails. So there's no reason to take the second one up.
You can't, well, because you
Doesn't
can't.
matter.
Yeah, it's moot at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, again, thank you all for coming out. And if you will, kind of exit quietly, we do have other business to take care of. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just to keep the record clear, you should probably just state for the record that that item 2 under F, public hearing, that based on the fact that the motion failed to change the zone, the re-subdivision and coast area site plan were not approved. So you should probably, it's just in an abundance of caution, take a vote on number 2. And obviously, you should vote against it because it doesn't qualify now to be subdivided.
I mean, I'll just make the statement that we're not going to hear it because so okay. The item 2 in the public hearing is 3335 Laurel Avenue, Zone R5, petitioner Thomas Lynch, Esquire, for proposed re-subdivision on map 16, block 147, parcel 23, of which Titanium Properties LLC is the owner, is not going to be pursued any further as it has no impact and effect and is essentially moot. Next order of business is the bond. Do you want to tell us what the bond?
Yes, the bond. So you should have in front of you a request for a bond reduction. This is we'll call it a subdivision. It was, for all intents and purposes, a subdivision by its looks, but it was by a stipulated court agreement that this was developed the way it was, so it was treated as a subdivision. And when you approve a subdivision, and one of the things that occurs after the fact is estimates are made for the improvements that are going to be in the public right-of-way, sidewalks, curbs, in this case, streets. An actual street was built. So when a project is approved, we then ask the applicant to provide a bond to guarantee that all of those public improvements are made and done to the city's satisfaction. So in this particular case, Marceline Lane is one of those projects, and they had over $200,000 bond in place. It's been reviewed by the city engineer, and the applicant would very much like you to agree with the city engineer that the bond can be reduced to, I believe it's $55,000. And this is an administrative thing that will happen periodically with other subdivisions. Just to let you know, you'll end up seeing this again.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the bond reduction. Do we have a second? Okay, motion second. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. We don't have liaison reports because we don't have any liaisons yet. Subcommittee reports, we will be meeting both the Regulations Subcommittee and the POCD will meet here on the second Tuesday, which is what date?
It's the third Tuesday. Yes.
Third Tuesday, yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, I think you need to get people to be on those subcommittees so you
Yeah,
can
I know
make...
that. That's part of what I'm going to tell the date, and then I'm going to ask for volunteers. 21st. So what we have is a standing committee for regulation review and a standing committee for our plan of conservation and development. And I would encourage everybody to get on one or both. So if you would think about it, we will meet with the regulations subcommittee will be at 7, and then the POCD will be after that, maybe 7:45. So I won't ask for a commitment now, but I would ask you all to think about it and try to attend, even if you just come for.
Keep in mind, these are subcommittee meetings. You can only have 5 members in attendance at any one of those subcommittee meetings. You can't have 6 members of the board at any one of these meetings because then it's an official planning board meeting. That's why they're subcommittees. So you can have up to 5 people in one or the other.
So let's in the next couple of weeks do this via email through David. Express your interest in either or both, and we'll get the numbers correct. Okay, so please do pay attention. David, you will send out an email.
I'll send out an email. I'd like you folks to seriously consider this, and by the end of the week, I would like to know who's interested. So when we have this second meeting of the month, there'll actually be people there. Because until we have the subcommittees, we can't just sort of, I can't be just sitting here waiting for people to show up. They have to be officially be subcommittee member.
Do we have to meet at 7? Or because this is a different thing, can we meet at 6 for one and 7 for the other? Or do we have to meet at 7 and then the other?
Right now we have to meet at 7 because that's the time that we gave the city clerk. So that's the official. Now, if the board wants to, look at changing times on their agenda, you can vote to change those official times, but once they're submitted to the city clerk, those don't take effect for, I think a minimum 30 days. So you wouldn't be able to change the time of that meeting in 2 weeks.
If it helps, I'm okay with the POCD. I want to continue on that. Or do I need to send you an email formally, or just put me down?
Don't just put you down. I mean, you know,
Gotcha.
it's the way the rules of the appointment are is, you know, you just tell the chair can, if Jim wanted to, he could just sit there and say, hey, you know, Peg, you're on this committee, you're on that committee. But he's being nice and asking.
All right, Jim, I'll be on POCD.
Okay, good.
So we have Jim on POCD, Jim Cater on POCD. Anyone else interested? Peg? Okay. Okay. Brett, that's POCD? Okay. Anybody else? Jim. So we got the 2 Jims. Okay. And then we have a regulations subcommittee. Anyone interested in sitting on the regulations subcommittee? Okay, we have Bob, Jim, and Brian. Okay, so we have, which is fine, we have 4 members of POCD right now and 3 on the regulation subcommittee, which is great because now we have people to have the meeting.
Great.
There's,
And-
only if you want to. There's no need. You know, we have, if you want to, we can add you to it. Okay.
And David, would you tomorrow send everybody an email with a list of the liaison positions? I know we've done this in the past, but I'd like to get the new members, and I'd like it to be refreshed, to see if anybody wants to.
It should be in your packages.
It is in
we
the
sent it
packet.
out in the packages.
Oh, it's in here?
It was in the packet that was sent
Okay,
out.
then I thank you for that, yes. So we do have positions of liaison to different committees, and so that's, can be interesting. You know, you can, I think there's one for the alderman, one for inland wetlands. So there's just stuff that's kind of interesting to get involved with. So I'd encourage everyone to.
So which
take
one's
a
going to
look at
meet
that.
first? On subcommittee or POCD? I mean,
I would say we would do POCD. What do you think? Which one's first? Okay, yep. All right, good.
And I'll double check. We may have been very specific in our scheduling as to which was which. I'll double check that. If we weren't, then we can meet in any order you want.
Yep.
Mr. Quish, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You also, there was a regional subcommittee that's outside of the city. That was also indicated as a liaison.
Right.
I think it's in the paper packet.
Okay.
So if it's available, I'd love to assist, as long as
Okay.
you give me an idea how often it's going to be.
All right, very good. And Justin, would you come up and, we're going to revisit the schedule. We did change the schedule. Justin's been nice enough to stay late and try to explain to us why he thinks we should change it again.
Absolutely. Chairman Quish, Vice Chairman Sadie, members of the board, thank you for having me here tonight. I am here on behalf of Mayor Blake to speak in favor of the 2 meetings per month schedule. This is the way it's been for the last 10 years or so. We feel with all the business and activity going on in Milford, it's vitally important to keep that second meeting open, to have folks to have their ability to have their voices heard, to get this business moved through the board. And honestly, it's a lot easier to cancel a meeting than it is to add a new one. So we are strongly in favor of keeping the 2 meetings per month.
David, would you like to weigh in on this matter?
I have sort of a compromise idea, because everything old is new again. Way back in the dark ages when I started, we've always had, just for the record, 2 meetings a month. But back when I started, we always had general business, the site plans and CAMs and things of that nature could be at either meeting. but we would only do special permits and special exceptions. Anything that required a public hearing, those were set aside for one meeting. And I believe it was the second meeting of the month. We sort of got away from that when things got horribly busy, but we haven't been as busy as we were. So that.
And if that's a policy, then it's not in stone. If in fact you had a whole bunch of public hearings, you could split them up between the two meetings.
The reason why it was divided that way is all of the notice requirements that we have to give to the newspaper. And it was just easier for staff, and we had a bigger staff then, our staff is smaller now, to coordinate all of those meeting notices if we knew it's just for one meeting a month. Now, having said that, there could have been a situation where there was something extraordinary where the city felt it was in the city's interest to have an extra public hearing on a regular meeting night, but that was the exception, not the rule. So, generally, when we've had public hearings, for the most part, they're not controversial. So having multiple meetings on the same night was never really an issue. On the rare occasion, it would go late. And if it went late, the board has rules in effect where you can stop the meeting, and then we would carry that public hearing over into the following meeting. And that's what the board did for many, many years. So you're correct in saying that, oh yeah, you could have a public hearing. It's usually a carryover public hearing versus, oh, we're going to schedule a meeting for this one and for this one. Carryover, absolutely. And that might be the way to, it's something to consider. So you can have a lot of the business that Justin is concerned about at both of the meetings, and then the public hearing ones would be more or less at one meeting.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Want to weigh in?
Thank you, Mr. Quish. I guess we're probably getting hung up on the term meeting. The meeting would be a quorum of the board. On the other hand, the discussion we had when this meeting schedule was set and the requirements of the board members to be available and present for specific dates was going to be on a Tuesday night, and whether it was one night or two nights. And again, the discussion was individual work issues. And then the bigger concern that many people voiced was the work that's going to be required on the POCD. And having a half-hour subcommittee meetings may or may not accomplish that. So I'm just not sure why we have to restructure everything. Again, I'd like to hear from Mr. Rosen as to what the problem may be. We're having one meeting. I've been on the board 2 years, so I don't have the experience of all the members of the board, but at least the first year, every other meeting, it seemed like we were canceling because the business was either being withdrawn, we're not having a hearing, or when we were on there, we were in there for 15, 20 minutes. So I'm not sure why we have to change anything, and that's my question.
Well, I don't think we have to. I think the mayor's asking us to, though. So that's... Justin, could you speak to any more depth into why it's important to the mayor?
I mean, honestly, when it comes down to it, it really is just keeping the meetings on there. It's easier to cancel some of these meetings, especially as David alluded to with the noticing of the meetings. Milford's a town based on tradition. We've done this for a number of years. I think it's in our best interest to keep the 2-meeting-a-month schedule.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I'd hear a motion. Anybody want to make a motion to change back to the way it's always been? Or I'd hear a motion.
Could I do a motion to have 2 meetings a month, one meeting has a public hearing and the other doesn't? Can I make a motion to have 2 public hearings, or I'm sorry, 2 meetings a month, one with a public hearing component and one without?
You could make that motion if you wanted to, or you could make the motion that is just going with the first and third Tuesday, our regular scheduled meetings. So either way you wanted to make the motion, you could.
Got it. I could do the first and third Tuesday. Can make a motion to have a motion to have 2 meetings a month on the first and third Tuesday.
Do we have a second? Mr. Cater. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Who's opposed? Brian and John and Bob. Sorry, just for my understanding,
Do you want to do a roll call?
no, I think if everyone, I mean, obviously Carl isn't here, and everyone was in favor except Brian, John, and Bob. Is that correct?
I'm not in favor.
Yeah, you're against the motion of having 2 meetings. And just from my understanding, Brett, you just 2 full-blown public hearings at either meeting. Is that what you motioned?
Yes, that's what he said.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the motion passes. We'll go back to the schedule the way it was last year, starting the first meeting of February.
No, it'll be March because of the notice requirement to the city clerk's office.
Okay, very good.
One other thing, Jim, is that going to be 7 o'clock start time?
Yes.
Okay.
Staff report.
Can I just ask for one more clarification? What does this imply for the subcommittee meetings? Do they go back to the 6:30 slot?
We'll work that out.
We'll do that
Yeah,
later, okay.
So staff report is, I want to welcome the new members to the board, and I want to offer you the ability to come in and meet with me so I can give you an orientation, at your convenience. You are probably on the most important board of the city. The aldermen may think they are, but you really are, because you really shape the city and affect how it's going to be in the future. And that's why you have a 4-year term, because it takes you 4 years to really get a good handle on the tasks at hand. There's an awful lot to learn. There are an awful amount of regulations, and everything that you do trickles down from state statute and then presents itself in our regulations. And it's a marvelous board to be on, and I'm a resource for you, and I want to sort of get you on your right foot forward if you want to avail yourselves of the opportunity, and we can walk through the regulations, the POCD, the subdivision regulations, and really want to get you acquainted with the environment in which you're going to be reviewing everything through. So, by all means, please contact me. Let's get together. We'll spend as much time as you'd like, and I'm always available if you have any questions. As the other board members will tell you, you can just give me a call or pop in. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, I'd like to welcome the new members as well, and look forward to a good couple of years coming up. And I'd hear a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I think we might have missed approving the minutes.
Okay, yep, approval of the minutes, 12/17/2019. Have a motion? Second, all those in favor? Opposed?